Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's a new week. It's a new watch list. It's a new guest. It's Adrienne Lawrence joining me today. First of all, you guys know and love Adrienne Lawrence, but before we show, she is the attorney, legal analyst, and host of Overruled on TYT's Rebel Headquarters. You should check out her videos. She, as I've said many times, she's one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. Adrienne Lawrence, thank you for joining me on this lovely Monday.
Thank you for having me, and thank you so much for the wonderful compliments.
Yeah, I mean, I only speak the truth. And number two, Monday is the best day of the week. I hope enough people will join my bandwagon for that. I've been pushing this since about 2012 and hasn't really stuck yet. But we're here, we're ready to go. You're gonna find out soon. Monday is just as good as Friday. It's an opportunity for the rest of the week. Speaking of opportunities, we have an opportunity to talk about a lot of stories today. I wanna start on the political side of things with the drama, the absolute drama surrounding our, Joe Biden's announcement to put in a black woman on the Supreme Court, or at least nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court. So let's start with there. Joe Biden made that decision to nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court, and the Republican Party, Republican pundits, conservatives in general are still losing their minds over this whole thing. And as a matter of fact, over the weekend, now, Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker, he went on the record specifically to talk about reasons why this just might not be a good idea. And you've heard these types of things before. Let's watch.
Because at the end of the day, you want to say she was the best of any ethnicity or any gender. And I can see their point of view on this one.
It's a very good point. The only thing is, it's exactly what Biden said he would do in his campaign. So he's just fulfilling a campaign promise, and he told the whole world that's exactly what he was going to do. The irony is that the Supreme Court is at the very same time hearing cases about this sort of affirmative racial discrimination.
Yes.
And while adding someone who is the beneficiary of this sort of quote, the majority of the court may be saying writ large it's unconstitutional. We'll see how that irony works out.
He speaks of irony. He's mentioned it a couple times there. The irony. You know what the irony is? The irony is that he called that racial discrimination. When you take a look at this chart of Supreme Court justices through American history, in case you can't see that, those really small things at the bottom. Those are the now. This is before Amy Coney Barrett, but now 7 people that aren't old white guys that are on the court. Of course, 5 of those now are women and 2 of those black men. So this nomination would then be the first black woman on the court. And look at how many brains have exploded as we see it going over and over and over again. And the talk about affirmative action is always one of those buzzwords, one of those dog whistles to make sure people know, hey, you know what we're talking about here? We're talking about unqualified, and she's a woman too, a black woman on top of all that. Now, oddly enough, there was one person from the Republican Party that was a bit more supportive of Joe Biden's decision. Let's watch this.
Put me in the camp of making sure the court and other institutions look like America. You know, we make a real effort as Republicans to recruit women and people of color to make the party look more like America. Affirmative action is picking somebody not as well qualified for past wrongs. Michelle Childs is incredibly qualified. There's no affirmative action component if you pick her. She is highly qualified. And President Reagan said, running for office, that he wanted to put the first female on the court. Whether you like it or not, Joe Biden said, I'm going to pick an African-American woman to serve on the Supreme Court. I believe there are plenty of qualified African-American women, conservative and liberal, that could go onto the court. So I don't see Michelle Childs as an act of affirmative action.
There's Lindsey Graham standing up for the decision to choose a black woman. Now there was one more piece. Jen Psaki, the press secretary for Joe Biden, also had to discuss this thing about reverse racism. Let's watch this.
Well, first we'd say that the fact that no black woman has been nominated shows a deficiency of the past selection processes, not a lack of qualified candidates to be nominated to the Supreme Court. I'd also note I've heard that some conservatives may be fans of President Reagan, and former President Reagan, and when he nominated Sandra Day O'Connor, he said, quote, Judge O'Connor's confirmation symbolizes the richness of opportunity that still abides in America. Opportunity that permits persons of any sex, age, or any race from every section and every walk of life to aspire and achieve in a manner never before even dreamed about in human history. I'd also note, if you look at the president's own record, not only has he nominated the highest number of black women to serve on the circuit court and the appellate court, but he has also nominated across the board the highest level of Ivy League nominees.
It's almost like Jen Psaki was prepared for that ridiculous question with actual information. So Adrienne, this is the thing. So there's lots here. There was the Roger Wicker, of course, talking about affirmative action. Lindsey Graham, in my opinion, kind of standing up for it. And then Jen Psaki coming in with the inner. So what, in general, I mean, there's lots to go off here. I'm gonna let you go for what you think is the most egregious thing that's happened here.
Oh gosh, I think all of it is egregious in terms of talking about qualified, and we have to make sure she's qualified. They only do that when it's a black or brown person. When it's a white male out there on the stage or the forefront leader, nobody's talking about qualifications, when we damn sure know that President Trump and a lot of these appointees that they have to the Supreme Court aren't quote unquote qualified. But no, it's the thought that white men are the most knowledgeable and best for the job and the most objective. And so it's essentially they're saying we're in a position to determine who is worthwhile to be on the court. Also, the way that Republicans totally misrepresent what affirmative action is just telling. The fact is that affirmative action is making up for essentially injustices of the past, but it has nothing to do with qualifications. It's just that Republicans want to say, oh, it's a bad thing because it means putting unqualified people in positions. That is such a falsity. In addition to that, the ones who have benefited the most of affirmative action are white women. Statistically, we know this to be true. Black and brown people and women of color are not the beneficiaries of affirmative action. It is white women. So that's largely the Sandra Day O'Connor situation. But it's tired of these racist rhetoric tropes just kind of going around and people saying, oh, it's about qualifications when you never say that about anybody else.
It's weird, but also affirmative action is the term that comes up when it specifically comes to black folks that get an opportunity when they didn't before. By the way, affirmative action, as it was supposed to be supposed to help with minorities who don't get those opportunities in our system that has kept them from those opportunities. It's not just black folks, but it's like the welfare queens line that they've been pushing since forever. When they say welfare queens, are they talking about all the poor white folks that are on welfare? Because that is the majority. So it's always this buzzword, as I mentioned, the dog whistle, to make sure people know, hey, we're talking about those black folks who don't deserve to be in the positions that they're in, because they're just black people and we know how much lower they are. Everything is couched in this white supremacist language. And we're in it so much that a lot of times we don't even recognize it. So when people do point it out, it goes, how dare you keep talking about racism? Well, you talk about it every day. It's baked into what you're talking about when you say things like that. Affirmative action candidate who's not qualified. Even Lindsey Graham. So in his defense, and he's supposed to get some credit for this, he goes, we're gonna put in people I don't think she's one of those. First of all, she's one of the good ones. We're not gonna put one of those to right the wrongs of the past. The wrongs of the past in which country? I thought America has never done anything wrong in its past with any of its citizens, any of its minority citizens, any of its people that it's enslaved, people that they've pushed the judicial system against our entire existence here. What's with this opposition to critical race theory teachings in schools, which isn't happening, by the way? I thought everything was perfect here. If there's wrongs, Lindsey Graham, maybe you should point out to your colleagues who keep saying there were none. Again, we don't realize how we're saying the reality in discussions like this. But then when they have to actually talk about the wrongs of the past, they go, I didn't see anything, that didn't happen. Which one is it gonna be? It fits whatever narrative they need it to fit.
Exactly, and it's like anybody that Lindsey Graham promotes for the Supreme Court, I'm gonna pass on. I don't care how qualified, quote unquote, she is. But also something that I think is really unfortunate is the fact that if we're supposed to have a court that does truly reflect our nation, we need to have somebody on that bench that's not an Ivy Leaguer. I want a statey. I want one of us who are out there, because just because we couldn't necessarily afford it or get in the right channels and opportunities doesn't mean we're not intellectually sound and that our voices shouldn't be heard. Like, that classism is so incredibly omnipresent. It's even greater, I would say, than the racism and the sexism on that bench. It's straight classist.
It's straight up. And my last point before we move on is we talked about diversity. Even then, and my last point on Lindsey Graham, because I know he's supposed to get some credit for this. We bring in diversity to show the American people we've got diversity. That's not the reason for diversity. That's the first problem in the first place. Bring in people to represent the American people that are there. We're not just a bunch of old white guys. So the reason for bringing in a black woman is not to say, I've got a black woman, and by the way, Democrats do it too, so let's not say it's not that. But the reason for it is they bring experience and expertise that other folks just don't have. Not from any fault of their own, because they can't live like a black woman, because they're not. Bring in someone who's had that experience, who's had those life lessons, and can bring some kind of a robust nature to the Supreme Court to represent the country, if you care about your country. Unless you think, like Mitch McConnell thinks, those African Americans versus real Americans. Moving on. Former one-term president Donald Trump, he's stressed out. He's been stressed out for a while, but he's seriously stressed now because now he's potentially gonna face some consequences for his well-known tax evasion schemes, or even is looking to manipulate the previous election in certain states. As he's stressing out over the investigations and potential charges that could be brought up against him, he just did what anyone else may do. Go speak in front of a rally, a bunch of supporters, and tell them how you're gonna do a bunch of crazy things if and when you run for president again. Here's our boy Trump.
We will treat those people from January 6th fairly. We will treat them fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons. If these radical, vicious, racist prosecutors do anything wrong or illegal, I hope we are going to have in this country the biggest protest we have ever had in Washington, D.C., in New York, in Atlanta, and elsewhere, because our country and our elections are corrupt. They're corrupt. Local prosecutors in New York and other locations who horribly campaigned for office on, we're gonna get Trump. This is how they campaign, we're gonna get Trump. They've been going after my company many years, using every trick in the book in an attempt to literally, if they can, put me in jail. They wanna put me in jail.
Put me in jail, put me in jail. Donnie, I can see the sweat trickling all over your face. He's sweating, he's worried about what's gonna happen here. Now, specifically, he talked about DC and New York and these illegal investigations. Which illegal investigations? Which racially motivated investigations, Donnie? You might find out as they're investigating, there's this guy who's outed you before already. Let's watch.
It's the only years that anybody's ever seen were a couple of years when he had to turn them over to state authorities when he was trying to get a casino license, and they showed he didn't pay any federal income tax. So
that makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid zero.
Somebody that looked like Donald Trump said he did participate in that because he's smart. Fine, that was one time, unless it was this time.
You've said you pay state taxes, employee taxes, real estate taxes, property taxes. You have not answered, though, a simple question. Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes? For
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors.
Donnie and all of her donors do. Okay, that's only twice, JR, except for this third time.
They go after good, hardworking people for not paying taxes on a company car. Company car. You didn't pay tax on the car or a company apartment. You used an apartment because you need an apartment because you have to travel too far where your house is. You didn't pay tax. Or education for your grandchildren. I don't even know. Do you have to? But does anybody know the answer to that stuff? Okay? But they indict people for that. Think of it. Think of how unfair it is. Never before has New York City and their prosecutors, or perhaps any prosecutors, criminally charged a company or a person for fringe benefits. And by the way, every company and who the hell people don't even know.
I mean, who knows? Adrienne, I'm trying to figure out, somebody needs to shut this guy up because he's incriminating Donald Trump at every turn. I don't know why they let him loose.
Well, I think they let him loose because Lord knows he's gotten away with it for so long. But it's wild to me how all of those individuals who are there likely struggling economically and paying their taxes are sitting here cheering for this man and saying, oh, you beat the system, you've gotten away with it, you've stolen our hard-earned money. And it's like, and they're just like, that's so cool. I just do not understand people. Ridiculous.
Now, we'll cheer on because we've been told, we've been indoctrinated throughout the country that, hey, those rich folks, if you keep on propping them up at your expense, they're eventually gonna say thank you and give you all of their money. I don't know, maybe a percentage of it. I'm not sure how much we're expecting to get from Donald Trump for cheering him on, for cheating the system. When they talk about how poor people cheat the system, people that make under $10,000 a year, how they pay zero taxes, they're hurting the American people.
Oh my God, it's just, yeah. And it's like, at what point in history have we seen these individuals who are wealthy billionaires who cheat the system, who don't pay their fair share, ever just say, yeah, let me just trickle down this cheating for you? Like, I just don't get it. People are like, wow, this person is my hero. Really? No, he's your abuser, your oppressor, your exploiter. What is wrong with you?
We're caught up. Now, by the way, he mentioned what, DC and New York, but also there was Atlanta and Georgia. Why Georgia? What happened in Georgia that Trump is upset about consequences coming down for? Let's watch this.
You should want to have an accurate election. And you're a Republican.
We believe that we do have an accurate election.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have, not even close. So look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
You're a Republican. Hey, listen, all I want to do is find this exact, very specific random number of votes, which is one more, because I want to win this state. So lastly, remember the racism line, these racist, illegal prosecutions and investigations. Let's look at the two women that are leading the investigation. One from Fulton County down there in Georgia about things like what he said to Brad Raffensperger in that last audio there, trying to pressure him to change the election books. Who's this woman? And what does she look like? Her name is Fannie T. Willis. Wow, racist, huh? Okay, fine. That's just in Georgia. Okay, what about in New York? Why is he upset about prosecutors in New York? Who's there? Oh, Letitia James is in New York, prosecute him over his tax fraud that he admitted to multiple times. Why is this now racist? Because black women are now leading investigations and potential prosecutions into your background and history of illegal activity from the party of law and order, as these black women are now going after and trying to pursue law and order in our country to bring things back together because they're patriotic Americans. Now it's racist.
Well, yeah, like why do you always have to make it about race? Like, look at him, he's trying to throw this whole racial thought. This thought that these women are going after him because he's a white man. Yeah, sure. Really, I checked, thought they were doing their jobs. The fact is that he's used to being able to skirt the law and evade any kind of accountability whatsoever. And the fact that he's being held accountable, he's like, this has to be nefarious in some way. This must be because I am a wealthy white man as opposed to I am a criminal.
And by the way, he thinks that will work because it has always worked in the past. Just say, look, those are black people. In fact, they're doing it right now with Supreme Court pick. If you want one more indication as to why they're so afraid of a potential black woman being on the Supreme Court, is because they get things done. I was about to say the other word, but they get things done. And once they start getting things done, people start getting afraid because Donald Trump has been investigated many times. Nothing's ever come of it because they stop before it's over. Maybe these two won't. Just saying. Now shaking in her boots and sweat is running down your face. That's a problem. Black woman. Hey, let's fill up the Supreme Court with them. If we're gonna get more actual policies and actual judicial decisions done the right way, let's do it. Anyway, I'm gonna stop ranting. Let's take our first break, you guys. And when we come back, Nazis, they're on the streets of Florida. In case you haven't heard, I'm sure many of you guys aren't surprised by that. We'll look into it when we come back.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. No,
we'll see. We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy. Everyone should be lucky enough to have a John Iadarola in their life.
You confused everyone?
Okay, sorry. I thought it was pretty clear.
Take a break now.
You can turn me to Dr. Manhattan as long as I get what Dr. Manhattan's packing, okay?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Iadarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby. You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmothers.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute, don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
I hope that, who they choose for the White House isn't just a borderline Klansman. That's all we gotta hope.
That's it, we will settle it.
She's cute. I didn't say that about Laura Ingraham.
Scandal at TYT. Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't.
You're a good bosser.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip in the Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
What's happening? I'm Dr. Rashad Richey, host of Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey. Here's the bottom line. I play no games about policy, period. Too many people's lives are at stake. So here's what I do. I challenge conservative ideology that hinders the growth of this country. I make sure we place our facts in proper context, and I have no problem debating anyone on a position that I have. Progressives have the ideas to change the world, but when you really look at it, progressives have always changed this world for the better. I want you to tune into my new show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, right here on the TYT Network, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll see you there.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Back on the watch list, everyone. Hi, happy Monday, the best day of the week. Really quick, let me read a few of the TYT member. I love hearing from you guys. So members from TYT, Eric the Red says, Monday, speaking of which, Monday, the best day of the week, a couple more question marks there. I admire your optimism, Jayar, but we're headed into mania here. Come on now, bro. Just get your sludge coffee. I've been arguing with people on Twitter all weekend over sludge coffee. Anyways, get your coffee and your Monday will be lovely. In fact, don't get your coffee. Drink some crazy energy drink like I'm drinking and go talk about mania. Anyways, Monday, we're working on it. Colorado, the Blue Blazer regular says, wait, what? Biden putting someone on the Supreme Court might prejudice their rulings, but Trump putting 3 injustices to support him isn't prejudicial? He openly said it. The Supreme Court has also been that place where when you have lifetime appointments, the point of that was supposed to be so they won't have any biases or they're not worried about being kicked off or voted off because of their rulings, and they can be a lot more judicial. And instead, we tout it as, I get to put someone on for the rest of their lives and they're only 45 years old and they're gonna rule in my favor forever. That's what it's become. Urban Hermit says, in Canada, affirmative action in practice meant that when qualifications are sufficient for the person, then selection ought to favor visible minorities. Not just in Canada. Thank you very much, Urban Hermit. With that being said, let's go to this video I was talking about from Florida. There was a viral video from over the weekend where people were displaying and tossing out Nazi symbols and signs and yelling at passerbys because it's the weekend. They just want to have some fun. Let's watch.
No more Jews. You get some black power, you got white power here. White power.
You're live. 6 million viewers.
Say hi. Say hi. White pride's when you think it. White power is when you live it. You can shove that finger up your rabbi's ass.
He's a Jew.
He's a Jew. Look at him. Guess where you're going back to?
You know how we know you're a Jew? We can tell by how close your eyes are together.
I'm gonna go tell somebody about this. Let me tell my rabbi. What are you gonna do? Let me go suck some baby penis. It's a papa. What do you say? Let me suck the bloods with the baby's penis like the rabbi does. What do you say? Another satisfied customer. Come again.
After a fulfilling afternoon of tossing insults around at random people on the street, they went home and said, this was a good day. Because that's what their life is filled with. That's what their life is about, hatred. Now these look like the 7-year-old bullies from elementary school who kind of ran out of people to yell at. So now they just stand on the corner and yell at anybody that they can. Some more information about all this that was happening. So there's an agency said that its investigation into the fight between several demonstrators, because there was a couple fights that broke out as well, because they can't help themselves. And passerby is ongoing, but that no arrests were made Saturday and that the group left the area. Orange Sheriff John Mina promised to, quote, thoroughly investigate any criminal activity by the demonstrators, because I guess he has to say that, right? Even though this is pretty much normal place in American cities everywhere. So also the mayor spoke out as well of Orlando. This is down in Orlando. Anti-Semitism and hatred are not welcome in this community. Despite displays of hate in Central Florida this weekend, our collective commitment to building an inclusive, compassionate community for all is stronger than ever. Okay, so that's a statement just to say it. Why? If you're a politician and you say we're doing this to make our community stronger, I expect, at least my brain next goes, okay, I'm waiting for that next sentence. So how? What are you gonna do? And because right now I'm seeing it's not very inclusive and it's not working for everyone. Anyways, on top of that, the governor of Florida, he had things to say. Maybe Ron DeSantis is really ready to lock these guys down and make sure that he's not this kind of guy. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis did not immediately add to the bipartisan denunciations about this, and his top spokesman sparked some controversy by questioning whether the swastika-clad demonstrators were actually Nazis. Do we even know that they're Nazis? Christina Pushaw posted and she since deleted this tweet. I trust Florida law enforcement to investigate, and I'm awaiting their conclusions. Really? Do we really even know? Maybe they're just saying things on the corner, wearing Nazi symbols and flying Nazi flags and impersonating what they see as a caricature of Jewish folks for the sake of what?
Yeah, and you know what? That kind of gets me in terms of it's like, oh, so now they want to talk about qualifications? Like, okay, I see how this works. When it comes to oppressing others, that's when you want to pull up qualifications, and you're willing to question it when you have white men engaging in Nazi-like behavior. Because if it walks like a Nazi, talks like a Nazi, they're gonna need a second opinion. Like, get out of here.
It's just the way it always works. So we're not sure. I didn't know that being a Nazi, you had to go to a 4-year college, get your degree, and be like, I'm out of Nazi school. You guys gonna hire me yet? This is a professional gig or something? I don't understand how this works anymore. Again, it's avoiding the topic. And we'll go back to our history of avoiding the topic. And it's why we still have these people like this here, because they know there's a certain level of support that they'll continue to enjoy. And when it comes to particular officials that will say one thing, we've seen officials and people that say, we denounce all the racism and the Nazis. Trump tried to say it once. Then after he said it, he went back to embodying everything that they stand for. So again, and one of their other excuses was that there was those protesters that outside of where Glenn Youngkin, they were trying to stand and look like they were Nazis or racists. And they were standing out in the rain, and they're saying, maybe there's some more actors like that. Maybe they're Antifa. You go back to the same well over and over and over again because you know your supporters will buy that. So the question just becomes, do we care enough? Because look, this is gonna blow over, the weekend's over, people are gonna stop talking about it. Maybe they'll show up again at the next event, start some more fights, march down the street, get protected by cops whenever someone else decides to walk up and tell them, hey, you know what? That's not what we like to practice in America. That's not who we are. Since you guys talk about patriotism and not being like other people, they're worshiping Nazis, Hitler and Nazis, that American ideal. Everyone should be against this. But instead, we'll prop it up because that's what America is.
Yep, and I love this whole mentality of, are you sure that they're Nazis? It's like trying to cast that sense of doubt. And we've seen it pretty much in all uprisings of white supremacy. When we talk about the KKK wearing those ghost-like hoods, the thought that, hey, well, you saw people in hoods? That must have been a figment of your imagination. It's the same kind of thing, that gaslighting, that are you sure? And continuing to undermine as opposed to essentially saying, yes, that's exactly what these are. And this is who we are.
It's what it is. And by the way, if they had to admit it, the problem is, like before, you have to do some work. And they definitely don't want to do that work. The only thing they want to do is get reelected. And if Nazis reelect me, if they're supporting me, I don't care their numbers. Just the reality. Let's move to this next story.
Government is what takes all of your money and gives you very little in return.
That is not true.
Okay, that's it's kind of true. It depends on the kind of government. Yeah, that is what taxes are for, but taxes are theft, children. Taxes are, the government takes a part of the money that you spend or the money that you earn or the property value of your house.
On useless stuff. What about debt?
Mostly yes. I mean, they're supposed to spend it on things like the police. They're not supposed to spend it on just random projects or silly things that they have in their head, and they tend to spend it on kind of silly things very often. But as you get older, you will realize how little you like taxes.
Yeah, he's way off base about that.
He's way off base about that. Talk about getting schooled in elementary school by 5, 6-year-olds. Who knows how old those children are? It doesn't matter because Ben Shapiro couldn't keep up with them. Anyway, it goes. So also there's this tweet as well that highlights exactly what you all just witnessed there. And they said whoever's kid this is who shut down Ben Shapiro's whiny ass. Shut him down immediately, actually. And by the way, that was uploaded by Daily Wire, which Ben Shapiro works for. It's weird. That's one of those things that you should have left on the cutting room floor. It'd be like, yeah, we wasted an entire day shooting this. It didn't work out. Hey, Ben, let's do something else. Let's go rant about something else. Maybe they'll buy that because this definitely didn't work. So by the way, there was a little bit more that he also exposed the children to, a little bit more of his indoctrination. Let's watch this.
I come from a state called California, where monsters roam the streets and garbage is strewn everywhere. I think that Biden kind of makes up the rules as he goes. I don't think, unfortunately, he cares very much about the rules for being president. I think he just tries to do whatever he can do. Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia is my current favorite Democrat. He's preventing Joe Biden from doing a lot of bad things. So guys, you just learned more than you will in all of college about how the government works.
They definitely learned what a partisan hack and a pundit is like in this country, because that's definitely the kind of conversations we have. If you talk to a bunch of kids, you're like, this is my favorite Democrat, this is my favorite Republican, and this is that. Where's the unity? I thought we were talking about unity, and you're talking to children about their government. So their government, from the beginnings of their minds, the brainwashing here is that there's this division. And that there's one group that's bad, and that's the one that I dislike, and there's one group that's good, that's the one that I like. So they're supposed to follow you. is what this is. And as we talk about this indoctrinating kids and we're teaching our children, what books are they reading? I can't believe that they're learning things that I don't want them to learn. Oh, let's see, Turning Point USA, which is also another conservative organization. They have things where they're jumping in the middle of schools and they wanna make sure they teach kids certain things. Let's look at this screen grab here from what they do. We play offense with a sense of urgency to win America's culture war. You know what the America's culture war is to these types of folks? The things like Mr. Potato Head, whether or not, what race or under what ethnicity, what gender is he? I can't believe this. Hey, you know all of those transgender folks run up in your bathrooms and destroying things. These are the culture wars that they're trying to indoctrinate kids to start hating other folks in so they can get some new voters, the new crop of voters. They're starting at 5 years old here. And also from their website, the organization's mission is to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote principles of freedom, free markets, and limited government. Turning Point USA believes that every young person can be enlightened to true free market values. There's lots of code words there. Maybe you can break some of these down for me, Adrienne.
Yeah, definitely a lot of code words there. But first of all, I would like to talk to the parents of those kids. They had to sign releases for their kids to be exposed to Ben Shapiro. Like, what are you thinking? Like, it almost says that it makes me wonder either they paid a hefty amount for those kids to be there, or they're also right-wing parents. But either way, it just bothers me considerably that people would allow this of their own volition. But yeah, it's like we're gonna have so many of these organizations popping up that are effectively just forms of new racism, new oppression, new classism, and they do have these buzzwords, and they're trying to maintain the systems of oppression as they are. And we have to weed these out. We need to call them out. We need people to have the intellectual capacity to be able to recognize that these organizations are actually just largely oppressing them and trying to recruit people to help them maintain the systems of oppression. But if we start in schools and we don't educate people, which is definitely what's gonna go on right now, then we're just gonna have a bunch of minions running around essentially doing the bidding of the oppressors.
Since we've been oppressing people in this country, which has been since the beginning, education and access to it have been the cornerstones of doing that. There's a reason why enslaved people weren't allowed to read, weren't allowed to learn things, because once you have information under your belt, you can do things with it and effectively change things. They don't want things to change. And as education does happen, and we see young people actually are saying things that are correct and right and acknowledge the world as what it is, they don't like that. They have full campaigns against that. And they're pushing parents into these school board meetings to make sure that they don't teach things so we can teach them the way we want to. It's projection. These CRT teachers are teaching our children history. We don't want that. Now, let's look further than that. PragerU has also, as last week I talked about, there was a gun story. And they want the next crop of new young gun owners, so they're making baby guns. Everything is directed at getting that next generation of people to be just like you and just as hateful. So really quick, this graphic from PragerU depicts Dennis Prager as this weird child with gray hair waving the American flag and his puppy and a bunch of other people surrounding him. Parents unite to save America and join this movement. So we're saving children with an old 5-year-old. I don't know how that's gonna work, but again, it's to appeal to children and to make sure that they indoctrinate them further into their mindset that nothing ever happened in this country. Everyone that wants to change it is actually trying to destroy it.
Yep, and it's always been a true meritocracy. So the reason that certain people aren't doing well is because they don't work hard enough, because they're lazy, not because we have systemic issues that have essentially oppressed and held people back. It's like they're just trying to maintain these old tropes that have allowed the system to operate the way it's always operated. And so many of us have been indoctrinated with that stuff that people don't even recognize it's indoctrination. And this propaganda, it will come in shiny little articles and all sorts of colorful cartoons, but it really is just the propaganda they need to keep America, I guess, great.
They're working on it. We will work after this next break, you guys. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. When we get back, there's a bit of violence being called for our election systems. I wonder by whom that might be. We're gonna get to that when we come right back.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're gonna help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa! Democracy!
United!
We are!
We are!
Too strong! There's thousands of volunteers, and you could be among them. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Wolf-pack.com.
Mayweather will knock out Pacquiao. Floyd beats his wife.
Okay, I get it. You're progressive. You're looking for other progressive voices. Why? Because you want real progress to happen. You're tired of the why, regular stuff. You should be checking out the Young Turks. Why? Because who else is going to have Killer Mike talking about politics and social issues in his new TV show, Trigger Warning?
My dad wrote the story of his life. It's called The Original Young Turk. It's a book on shoptyt.com. Part of the story is how I became progressive. Now, he doesn't write about that per se, but in his life story, you see, oh my God, when a community helps one another, when the government also chips in and gives you free education, anything is possible. He went from an incredibly poor olive farmer to living the American dream.
Back on the watch list. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Really fast, a few of you guys super chats on this wonderful Monday. John Ditmore says, this show right now is rich white man's worst nightmare. Intelligent, well-spoken black people with open eyes and consciousness. Well, thank you. I think that's for you, Adrienne. Weezerina says, random projects. This is about Ben Shapiro. Like public school, childcare, social safety nets, public transportation, those random projects, yes, they hate all that stuff. In fact, they won't mention it because they know people go, really? Also, Gail Hefner, thank you very much for the super chat. Just sending hearts, she says. Thank you, I'm sending hearts right back. Not sending hearts for this next story. Let's get this one going. A Republican candidate for state senator up in Michigan, his name is Mike Detmer, and he's not really happy about the way things might go in this next election. So he's telling supporters to make sure they show up at the polls armed. Here's why.
The Second Amendment isn't there for hunting rights. It's not there for self-defense. The Second Amendment is there, the founders put it there to protect all the others. And it says to the government, the people have the right to stop what's going on. If they go back and look at our Declaration of Independence, we have our conflict. The ideal thing is to do this peacefully. That's ideal. But the American people, at some point in time, if we can't change the tide, which I believe we can, need to be prepared to walk away. So you ask, what can we do? Show them arm. If not, the poll workers stand out to block. Make sure that justice prevails. If we're going to be facing injustice, it is our responsibility as the American people to make sure that justice is brought.
Well, there's that. Make sure you show up to the polling stations armed, locked, and loaded, because you know what? The Second Amendment is not there for hunting, it's there for shooting fellow Americans. That's what he has to say. And we don't have to go to the next second. He wants you to unplug a bunch of machines from while you're at the polling places, because that's what fascists want you to do. Is this the next wave in America, or is this just what we've always been? This is crazy to me.
No, I agree with you. And, I think there's always been that kind of sentiment at the polls, this thought that there shouldn't be certain people there, playing a role in our democratic process. And thus they must be intimidated. They must in some way be hampered so that they cannot play that role. And this is just a continuation of things we saw in the 50s, 60s, and before that, Jim Crow. And it's kind of always been this way. So they may package it a little bit differently. They may not use certain epithets anymore, but they're essentially effectuating the exact same objective.
If you think about, I remember 2008, this first came to my brain when there was a couple of members of the new Black Panther Party that showed up at I think it was in Philadelphia, showed up at a polling place, and one of them was a poll watcher, and then it went to Fox News, and every conservative outlet and pundit could talk about it, said, can you believe these new Black Panther parties are intimidating people at the polls? I'm ready for you guys to talk about this now. To talk about how this guy specifically called a candidate for office is calling for people to show up with arms, locked and loaded, ready to shoot people if things don't go our way. It's what he said. It's what he said. This is America now. Let's move on to this next story because I want to feel a little bit good. It's not our good news, but it's pretty good news. Let's go to this.
This is the Silk City Community Fridge. Community Fridge is a free resource for the community that's facing food scarcity, and it's open 24/7, and it operates by the principle, leave what you can and take what you need. Our community fridge has started pretty much when the pandemic started. We realized that people were facing a lot of food scarcity and a lot of food insecurity, and they needed access to food. So this was a way to be able to help our community, through this pandemic and beyond. This is a project with Black Lives Matter Patterson and the Palestinian American Community Center. So we came together collectively to have this resource, but it's just not us and our membership that is contributing to the fridge. All members of the community have been donating items. When they see that the fridge is empty, if they have something extra in their house, they're more than welcome to donate to the fridge. And that's the beauty of it, is that people are helping people. The fridge is open 24/7. If you're someone in the community that needs something or would like to get something, you could just come here any time of the day, just open up the fridge and take something. There's no permission you need to ask. It's free to the community. And if you're someone who wants to give to it, we're more than open for any donations.
That is Zelly Thomas. He's a community leader and also one of the BLM Patterson in New Jersey, Patterson organizers, and they put together this Silk City Community Fridge. As he explained all through there, people give, people take to avoid the level. I mean, it helps a little bit with the food scarcity and food insecurity that many people do have these days, especially after COVID and especially other things that are going on in our country. But also that's not all that they're involved in with this fridge, which is a lot behind this. They've been doing this for a couple of years now, but they do a lot of things within the community. Let's watch this next video.
It's going down this Saturday from 11 to 1. Zelly, tell them what it is.
Yo, books and breakfast. This Saturday from 11 to 1 o'clock. We're giving out free hot breakfast to the kids of Patterson and free books, free snack packs, and masks. So please come on out, get something for the kids. This is from us to the community.
Just come up, make sure you pull up with your kids, your grandkids, your godkids, nieces and nephews.
Anybody, come on. All the kids.
I was on the sanitizer, right?
I actually got more.
Oh, thank you. Good meal right here. Let me get you a snack bag right here. Appreciate it. You already know. Take care. Hey, you wanted some of this clothes? Hey, come check it out. Okay.
Again, that's Black Lives Matter Patterson. Now, how much do you hear about Black Lives Matter whenever people talk about it, pundits and politicians about Black Lives Matter? What is the first thing you think in your head? Don't tell me, just think about that first image in your head. And if it has anything to do with this, because they don't talk about this. This is community building. This is assisting your community. This is people coming together to make sure a community is better and care about the lives of people in that community. Fighting back against things like this. And then also making sure that I think there's an awareness about how many folks in these types of communities get taken out by cops or gets deemed as criminals as soon as they come up. This helps people that are unhoused. This helps people that are struggling and maybe have children and are trying to get back on their feet. How much more help is this coming from other places or from our government institutions? I wonder.
Yeah, and something that really hits me, as you had mentioned, kind of the Black Panther Party, is that this was also an effort that they were very much involved in terms of feeding the community and uplifting and ensuring kids got the education that they needed. And it really shows you how much our nation will go to lengths to mischaracterize, to condemn, to sully in the mind of the dominant class of white people, and even of other Black people, into thinking that these organizations that essentially reflect Black people mobilizing and making things better for themselves are nothing but bad, and that they are going to take down our nation, when that's not the case at all. And we have to be aware of this indoctrination, this propaganda, these essentially things implanted in our minds to keep us all ignorant, and also to keep individuals from certain groups oppressed.
Straight up. And then they'll complain that people, you Black people don't do enough for your communities. Why don't you go back and fix them? It's always happening. You just don't pay attention. And in fact, you throw hurdles in the way and make sure that it doesn't happen. That's historically throughout our country. You look up any of these instances of Black communities being targeted and destroyed because they were thriving. Keep it real. Let's jump down to this last story, because you know what? Been a lot of negativity in my body today. We've been going through a lot of these things. I want to see some good news, you guys. I don't want to see the beach. I need to see some good news. Because you know what? I've got some.
Such a while, but I'm not done. Thought I had it figured out, and then it shifted. All I've done since then is run, and the world is off the charts. I don't even know if I have a heart left.
That is a reunion. We've seen many reunion videos, but that one struck me. Specifically, there was an older brother there who was standing behind this picture of a family coming back together. I think they had reconnected in Miami, and they're from Venezuela, and there was obviously the situation in Venezuela with all the tragedies happening there. The older brother took off, I think lived in Spain for several years, and the two younger brothers looked like about 13, 14 years old, hadn't seen him, and it was a surprise reunion there. And at the end of that, the older brother, the younger one that couldn't take his face from his hand from the excitement and happiness that he was feeling, then finally jumped up and gave his brother a hug. It's one of those things, man. I come from a big family. I've got 4 siblings, and I've never had to be separated from them over any kind of traumatic situation where then you never know if you're gonna see them again. And these types of things, I don't know, man, they touch me, man. And so this particular woman who recorded this, she's, I think, their cousin or aunt, and she's living in Florida. They came to visit her, and it all came together there. I like this kind of stuff, man. I know I see it a lot, but I like this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's nice. It's heartwarming, especially since we have been essentially going through this pandemic, and it's keeping a lot of us just far separated from those that we love and having that human connection and interaction. So to be able to see people reunite in some way, it's just warm and fuzzies.
I love it. And I know, a bit cheesy, but sometimes I'm a bit cheesy, but that's real life human interactions right there, man. And we talk about deaths and wars and this conflict and that. These are real humans behind each one of these things. So whenever we use the Venezuela situation in political terms, be like, don't be like Venezuela. There's people that are affected by that, and you're just using it for a quick one-off. These are the stories behind it, and I think we should pay attention to them more. Guess who's next, you guys? Guess who's next? It's John Iadarola with the Damage Report. And by the way, today, guess who's on? It's Francesca Fiorentini for Fantastic Mondays.
Yes.
Is that what they call it? Fantastic Mondays. Francesca works hard. She's on all these shows. By the way, today, you can watch that at twitch.tv/TYT or youtube.com/The Damage Report. And also today, they're gonna talk about, Meanwhile In. I used to do Meanwhile In, that was fun. They're doing that today, and also how the rent is too damn high and obstruction of justice in front of a bunch of crowds by Trump, which I think we've heard a little bit of that. But they're gonna dig into it only the way that the damage report does. So until tomorrow, Adrienne, thank you for joining me. This has been a lovely Monday.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next time. And next, of course, you'll see John Adirola. And until tomorrow, I'll be watching.